Hi, I'm Cornelius. With my friend Annabelle, Felicia, Jessica, Keisha, and Meisha, we want to talk about aesthetic of material. Aesthetic of material, based on Nathaniel Coleman books, Material and Meaning in Architecture. Aesthetic didn't only focus on visuals, but also how the material affect our body through our human sense, such as touch and movement. Architecture defined as something physical and tangible, not just on 2D visuals or aesthetic form. Material have an active role in how people understand and feel the space. Materials such as texture, weight, density, transparency will affect the user experience. Aesthetic of material approach from physicality over just a visuality. The example of aesthetic of material. First, the building character form from aperture as the main element of spatial experience. The concrete element, modified with horizontal and vertical line, to break the monolithic and directing user way of speculating the building structure. Wood also isn't used directly, but reproduced from the fiberglass mold to creating an impression of surrealism material. Dark glass create different experience, strengthen the massive feelings from outside while the transparent from the inside. The window element feels separated while it's not. Change of light, angle, and body positions let the material creating a new dynamic perceptions of space.
Untuk yang pertama di sini ada Serpentine Gallery Pavilion tahun 2013 oleh Sao Fujimoto, dan di sini saya memakai teori Embodied Experience of Materials oleh Nathaniel Coleman. Pada teori beliau disebutkan bahwa material dalam arsitektur itu tidak hanya berfungsi sebagai elemen konstruksi atau estetika saja, tetapi juga menjadi medium yang membentuk pengalaman tubuh manusia saat berada di dalam ruang. Menurut Coleman, arsitektur itu dipahami melalui tiga hal, yaitu tubuh, indera, dan juga pergerakan. Dan material memengaruhi bagaimana seseorang berjalan, menyentuh, merasakan skala, dan berinteraksi dengan ruang. Jadi, makna arsitektur itu muncul dari relasi langsung antara tubuh manusia dengan material. Untuk studi kasusnya, saya memilih Serpentine Gallery Pavilion 2013 oleh Sou Fujimoto. Dari karya beliau dapat dilihat adanya struktur sementara dari rangka baja putih tipis yang membentuk grid transparan seperti awan. Desainnya terbuka dan tanpa batas ruang yang jelas, sehingga menciptakan pengalaman yang ringan, interaktif, dan juga menyatu dengan lingkungan sekitarnya. Nah, berikut adalah implementasi estetika material dalam karya tersebut. Yang pertama itu ada strategi transformasi karakter material. Yang awal mula masalahnya itu material terasa berat dan kaku. Lalu strateginya itu adalah mengolah baja menjadi ringan dan melayang secara visual. Jadi solusinya adalah menciptakan persepsi ruang yang lebih ringan dan tidak membebani penggunanya. Lalu yang kedua ada transparansi as aesthetic. Jadi di sini problemnya adalah batas dalam dengan luar itu terlalu kaku. Strateginya adalah menggunakan transparansi tersebut sebagai elemen utamanya. Sehingga solusinya adalah menciptakan koneksi visual dan fisik dengan lingkungan. Lalu yang ketiga ada simplicity generating complexity. Di sini problemnya adalah kompleksitas itu sulit dicapai tanpa sistem yang rumit. Nah, strateginya adalah repetisi elemen sederhana atau menggunakan grid baja. Jadi, menghasilkan bentuk kompleks melalui sistem yang sederhana. Lalu yang keempat itu ada strategi void-based spatial formation. Di sini problemnya adalah ruang yang terlalu bergantung pada dinding dan juga massa yang solid. Strateginya adalah membentuk ruang dari celah antar struktur atau void. Nah, solusinya adalah menghasilkan ruang yang lebih fleksibel dan juga terbuka. Lalu yang terakhir itu ada material as interactive medium, di mana problemnya itu adalah pengguna pasif di dalam ruang. Strateginya Material yang digunakan itu dapat diduduki, dipanjat, dan dijelajahi. Jadi solusinya adalah meningkatkan interaksi dan pengalaman tubuh di dalam ruang. Nah, jadi berikut ada beberapa relevansi spatial and bodily experience dari Serpentine Gallery Pavilion 2013. Yang pertama itu ada material as experience, not just structure. Di sini grid baja itu bukan cuma struktur, tapi juga mengundang penggunanya untuk melakukan interaksi dengan tubuh mereka. Yang kedua, activation of movement. Tidak ada batas lantai, dinding, ataupun atap. Jadi ruang mendorong eksplorasi pengguna secara aktif. Lalu yang ketiga itu ada perception of skill dan juga position, di mana adanya yang lebih intim, ada area yang lebih luas. Persepsi itu, misalnya persepsi di dalam, di atas, dan di antara itu ditentukan oleh apa yang tubuh kita rasakan saat berada di area-area tersebut. Yang keempat ada sensory experience yang diambil dari light dan juga transparansi yang ada. Bagaimana ada cahaya dinamis, bayangan berubah, dan pengalamannya itu yang selalu berubah-ubah. Jadi conclusionnya adalah melalui teori embodied experience of materials, pendekatan estetis dalam Serpentine Gallery Pavilion 2013 menunjukkan bahwa estetika tidak hanya berfungsi sebagai tampilan secara visual, tetapi juga menjadi strategi untuk menyelesaikan permasalahan desain. Pendekatan ini memungkinkan terciptanya ruang yang lebih interaktif, fleksibel, dan juga terhubung dengan pengalaman manusia.
Moving on to the second one, my name is Annabelle, and I will be using the theory of an estranged type, old techniques, familiar materials, and peculiar outcomes, formulated by Kutan Ayata to analyze the Vanke Pavilion by Daniel Libskin. The core of this study is to understand how the aesthetics of materials isn't just about how a material looks on the surface, but how the way we assemble it, or the tectonics, can change our psychological and sensory experience of a space. We will start with the theoretical foundation. Kutan Ayata identifies a major problem in modern architecture, which is a reliance on fleeting trends. In our digital age, high technological aesthetics become dated as soon as the next software or construction technology arrives. And to solve this, Ayata proposes the aesthetic of estrangement. The idea is to take the mundane and ordinary, the things we see every day, and transform them into the phenomenal and extraordinary. He wants to create an ambiguous object. This is a structure that forces you to pause because you cannot immediately categorize it, because it's not just a building or a function. It is a peculiar object that demands wonder rather than simple recognition. Ayata's methodology is quite specific. It is a formula where if you take familiar materials and bring them together with old techniques and digital tools, that is when defamiliarization or estrangement happens. Ayata believes that discourse should go beyond just how to build and move toward how to twist. By using digital tools to manipulate traditional materials, we achieve what is called a ruled surface. In geometry, a ruled surface is formed by a series of straight lines that negotiate rotations between different planes. And when applied to architecture, it makes the building looks like it is undergoing a physical transformation in real time. This is the birth of the estranged object. Next, moving on to the case study project. Daniel Libeskin designed the Vanke Pavilion in Milan Expo as a landscape city. Conceptually, it is a metaphor for a mountain transforming into a dragon. It's a social bridge between traditional Chinese heritage and a modernizing digital future. What makes it a great case for Ayata's theory is its tectonic juxtaposition. We have a high technological chameleonic outer shell, which is the dragon, protecting a humble interior core, which is the mountain. This contrast creates a constant dialogue between the physical past and the digital future. The unique points of the Vanke Pavilion are, first, it has 4,000 metallic dragon scales, which are made from 3D articulated ceramic tiles. Second, its active chameleonic shell prioritizes physicality and movement over static visuality. Third, its design is rooted in Chinese cultural materiality, resisting the non-place aesthetic. And last, the gaps between the scales act as apertures that control interior lighting and ventilation. Now, if you look closer at the technical drawings on this slide, we see the digital choreography in action. The envelope is composed of over 4,000 individual 3D sculpted ceramic tiles. The tectonic logic here is fascinating. The tiles use a staggered, overlapping joinery to mimic the dragon scales. As for the details, they are fixed to a twisting exterior wall using sheet metal brackets, curved steel rods, and steel brackets. And this is exactly what Kutan Ayara means. Ceramic is a traditional, old material, but by using digital tools to twist its application, Libiskin challenges our recognition of the material. So it doesn't look like it's a bathroom, tile, or a brick, but rather it looks like organic skin. And beyond the shape, we have the material effect. A specialized metallic, light refractive lacquer is applied to these traditional tiles. The surface transitions from deep crimson to gold and shimmering white based on the angle of the light. This creates a condition of physicality over visuality. In standard architecture, you can see a building from a distance and understand it right away. But here you cannot do that. To see the full color spectrum, the viewer is forced to physically move. This is material defamiliarization. By giving ceramic a metallic appearance, the material is estranged from its historical identity, creating an object that most people find hard to categorize. Even the holes in the building are estranged. Usually, windows are independent elements, glass boxes punched into a wall. But here, Libiskin uses negative spaces as apertures. These gaps between the scales serve as the primary openings, replacing traditional frames. They act as a performative rain screen that controls solar gain and air circulation. And more importantly, these severed objects reveal the internal steel skeleton. This intentional arrangement reveals the tectonic distinction between the decorative armor and the functional structure. It turns a void, which is usually nothing, into an estranged architectural experience. And to conclude, how does this all tie back to the aesthetics of materials? So, the first is defying trends. By prioritizing estrangement, the Bonke Pavilion avoids becoming a dated, high technological relic. It maintains its status as a curious condition. Second is active physicality. It resists being read easily. It requires the users to move, touch, and observe to unlock the full design spectrum. And third is tectonic reimagination. It proves that traditional materials like ceramic can be diverse and extraordinary through a peculiar choreography. And so the conclusion is, the Bonke Pavilion proves that by defamiliarizing materials through their tectonics, appearance, and texture, architecture ceases to be a static box. Rather, it becomes a living, active, and estranged landscape. Thank you.
Now I want to explain about Baima Microlibrary by Show Architects, using the books of Experiencing Architecture by Rasmussen. So, under Experiencing Architecture books, Rasmussen talks about the architect's tool. First, the first tool is scale and proportion. The second tool is texture and material, and light and color, also solid and cavities. Sten L. Rasmussen talks that in experiencing architecture, architecture is not merely visual, but a multisensory experience that must be lived to be understood. Unlike sculpture, architecture is a functional art, a sculpted cavity that combines light, color, scale, and texture to evoke specific emotion and human responses. First, at the scale and proportion, human scale make architecture comfortable, while the monumental scale make the people inside feel overwhelmed. Next, the texture and the material itself. Material have inherent of qualities, the immaterialism of the material itself, such as the warmth, coldness, roughness, smoothness, and other feelings that we feel before we think. Lights and color. It explains how lights reveal form and color. Without light, architecture is just blind. Shadow give depth. Next is solid and cavities. Architecture is the art of shaping space. We experience the void inside, defined by the solid outside. The conclusion of this book related to the material aesthetic is architecture is not just about what we think, but also what we truly feels. It's not a rock, a wood, red or massive. It's more to how the rock made us feel weight, hard and sturdy, while the wood makes us feel lighter, intimate, elegance, or whatever it makes us feel. And the last chapter in hearing architecture, Rasmussen explained about hearing architecture. This is very interesting. It's explained how our conscious mind reflects every sound we hear as input. Our brain could determine how big or small, how crowded the space, just the sound we hear on the space. And the fact all of the texture and material in the room is the one of the major factor that also play the role. Now we talk about Baima Microlibrary. Baima, Baima Microlibrary is one of the show architects' work in Bandung. This is an open public space, a library itself that open for public. Uh, and here, show architect try to experiment with the material itself. They use the waste container of the ice cream to make a new experimental experience. So, based on the experiencing architecture book, the scale and proportion in micro library is the human scale to make it inviting and less intimidating. Also, the texture and the material show play with the unfamiliarity of the material itself, which is ice cream container. It's something familiar to us as human being, but it's not what we thought we would feel, not something that we would expect on the architecture or interior itself. So it's creating a new impression and experience. It feels light, weight, but different from polycarbonate. And the lights and color itself, it's very simple, grayscale dominated, making the interior elements such as the furniture and the books contrast deeper. Also the solid in cavities. The material looks solid and void at the same time, creating a new impression, especially with the container face direction, making it feels playful. Like we see on the pictures, some of the containers, uh, it's look it's look toward us and the rest is the opposite. So the conclusion, Baima Microlibrary is an experimental project that show how experience quality could be manipulated by a new or less familiar materials, creating a new experience for the user itself.
Moving on, my name is Misha Kui, and I will be presenting about Anton Picon's book of The Material of Architecture and how it is related to the project that I've chosen, which is Casa Mia by Antoni Gaudi. Before diving deep into Anton Picon's theories, we have to first define what he thinks of matter. But we first have to see what he defines matter, materials, and materiality. So first off, matter. He defines this as the raw substance. It's the fundamental physical stuff of the world, including traditional solids such as stones, wood, and iron, and also the intangible flows such as energy or data. The materials is the architect's toolkit, matter, matter processed for use, concrete, glass, brick, or steel. And it is defined by the technical properties and specific construction logics. And materiality, the most important one, is the human connection. It's not just the stuff itself, but the mediated relationship between humans and the physical world. The material dimension of how a phenomenon in relationship to human thought and practice. So, Picon's first theory, regimes of materiality. This is actually a theory borrowed from Francois Hartog's regimes of historicity, where Picon introduced regimes of materiality as a historical epochs defined by a characteristic way of experiencing and thinking about matter. Each society has a dominant way of understanding matter. For example, millennia ago, for Lapis Magna located in Libya, it's dominant in limestone. However, in the more modern era, such as the Hanga Guardians, built in 2009, uses more of concrete and industrial steel. So from these two examples alone, it actually shows that architectural is the physical proof of these regimes. Buildings show in its built form how people at the time relate to material world. Reading architectural through regimes of materiality connects traditional history, styles, and ideas with a technical and social history, machines, industry, environment. So architecture is actually a receipt for these eras. By looking at the building, you can see that society viewed their place in the physical world. His next theory is an architecture's task, which is animating matter. Bacon sees a core paradox. Raw matter is opaque, silent, and resistant. It does not actually mean anything by itself. And this is actually Bacon's most poetic point. He believed that on its own, a pile of rock is mute. It really doesn't care about you and it doesn't say anything. However, humans need meaningful worlds. It is actually an architect's major goal to animate matter, making stone, wood, metal communicate and host human action. The general goal is to take a silent matter and turn it into an arena for human life. So the project that I am currently most interested in is Casa Mia by Antoni Gaudi. So this shows that Bacon's theory actually exists in most buildings. Here's a brief introduction for Casa Mia. It is by Antoni Gaudi, popularly known as La Pedrera. It's a stone quarry, which is one of the most imaginative residential buildings in the history of architecture. It's located in Barcelona, Spain, constructed between 1906 and 1912, and remains a definitive masterpiece of the Catalan modernism. The building is actually celebrated for its radical departure from the rigid right-angled geometry of its neighbors, opting instead for a more fluid organic form that mimics the movements of nature. So to explore deeper into Casamia's material reality, Gaudi actually uses a laminated iron to create a free plan. In this case, the laminated iron is actually an internal structural framework, which carries majority of the weight it's building, thus separating the internal structure from the stone facade. The stone walls become wall screens or a kind of early curtain wall that seems to defy gravity. In traditional buildings, the exterior walls hold up the roof. At Casamila, however, the stone facade is self-supporting and attached to the internal iron structure. Materials and construction systems are treated as mediums at the service of formal and spatial expression of Gaudi's imagination. The facade is an undulating stone surface shaped like mountains and sea waves. So the use of mosaics and fragments adds texture, making the massive stone structure feel more soft, sculptural, and vibrant rather than cold and heavy. Gaudi actually revolutionized Gaudi actually revolutionized architecture at Casamias by using a hidden iron skeleton, which freed the stone facade to become a more poetic, undulating sculpture that mimics the natural world. So next, I will explain to you the theory and project relevance between Anton Picon's material of architecture and Antoni Gaudi's Casa Mia. For the first one, the first Picon's theory is regimes of materiality, its historical context. Casamia actually uses the new regime, a hidden steel skeleton, to make the old material, stone, limestone, perform a magic trick. It becomes fluid, a rippling curtain that seems to defy gravity. It proves by 1906, society's relationship with matter had shifted from mass onto performance. It is actually a receipt of the birth of interiority. It shows that society has mastered industrial technology, but still craves for that sensory and tactile connection to the natural world. His next theory is animating matter, so making stone and iron expressive in this case. For Picon, architecture paradox is turning mute matter into expressive form. In Casamia, the iron frame is largely invisible, but it enables the stone to undulate freely. The material looks like waves and mountains and not at all a rigid wall. So this is actually a very clear example of materiality as an aesthetic experience. The facade no longer feels as a load-bearing stone, but as a dynamic, natural surface. The material and subjectivity and how people experience it, the wave-like facade and organic balconies create a haptic, moving visual field that feels closer to the natural landscapes than typical urban buildings. So those who are just 90 degrees or those who are just a straight diagonal line, very different from that. And so in Picon's term, Casamia shapes a specific way of being in the city. Citizens encounter stone and iron, so a matter and material, as something fluid, alive, and nature-like, creating materiality. So it's not just functional. In conclusion, in Picon's term, Casamia is the moment where construction becomes poetry, proving that the aesthetic of matter is not found on the material itself, but in the miraculous way architecture and humans make that material feel alive.
Selanjutnya yang kelima yaitu Bruder Clausewitz Chapel dari karya Peter Zumthor. Lalu saya ambil teorinya dari buku Atmosphere Architectural Environment dari Peter Zumthor juga. Eh, jadi dalam buku ini Zumthor menjelaskan bahwa estetika arsitektur tidak hanya dilihat secara visual, tetapi juga dirasakan melalui pengalaman inderawi. Artinya, arsitektur bukan sekedar objek yang dilihat, tetapi juga sesuatu yang dialami oleh tubuh manusia. Material juga menjadi elemen utama dalam membentuk atmosfer ruang melalui kualitas seperti tekstur, cahaya, dan suhu. Dari sini, estetika material dipahami sebagai hubungan antara material, tubuh, dan emosi manusia. Sehingga kejujuran material, hubungan antar material, serta cara material merespon cahaya menjadi faktor penting dalam menciptakan suasana ruang yang kuat dan bermakna. Selanjutnya, dari teori tersebut, saya merangkum 3 aspek utama dalam estetika material. Yang pertama, kejujuran material. Jadi, material ditampilkan apa adanya tanpa penyamaran, termasuk jejak prosesnya dan ketidaksempurnaannya. Selain itu, hubungan antara material juga bisa menciptakan harmoni atau justru ketegangan, yang kemudian dapat mempengaruhi suasana ruang. Yang kedua, pengalaman multi indera. Material tidak hanya dilihat, tetapi juga dirasakan melalui sentuhan, suhu, suara, dan kedekatan dengan tubuh. Elemen-elemen ini bekerja sama untuk membangun pengalaman ruang yang bisa terasa sunyi, sakral, hangat, ataupun kontemplatif. Yang ketiga, interaksi material dengan cahaya. Cahaya berperan penting dalam mengungkapkan tekstur material, menciptakan bayangan, dan juga memperdalam dimensi ruang. Perubahan intensitas dan arah cahaya ini dapat membuat ekspresi material menjadi dinamis, sehingga dapat disimpulkan bahwa estetika material terbentuk dari kejujuran material yang berinteraksi dengan cahaya dan juga pengalaman indrawi, sehingga menciptakan atmosfer ruang yang dapat dirasakan secara emosional oleh manusia. Lalu sebagai studi kasusnya, saya menggunakan Bruder Clausewitz Chapel karya Peter Zumthor. Kapel ini terletak di Jerman dan dibangun atas inisiatif petani lokal sehingga memiliki keterkaitan yang kuat dengan konteks rural dan komunitas. Secara visual, bangunan ini memiliki kontras yang sangat kuat. Bagian luar terlihat monolitik, kaku, dan tertutup. Sementara bagian dalamnya justru organik, gelap, dan mengarah vertikal ke atas. Bentuknya juga seolah tumbuh dari tanah dan menyatu dengan alam. Menariknya, bangunan ini tidak menggunakan fasilitas modern seperti listrik atau air, sehingga pengalaman ruangnya benar-benar murni. Arsitekturnya juga tidak menekankan simbol religius secara eksplisit, tetapi lebih menghadirkan ruang yang hening, reflektif, dan eksistensial, di mana pengunjung merasakan arsitektur secara langsung melalui emosi dan indera. Lalu dari sisi struktur, konstruksi, dan material, bangunan ini menggunakan beton cor berlapis yang dituangkan secara manual selama kurang lebih 24 hari, sehingga menghasilkan tekstur seperti lapisan sedimen pada bagian luar. Hal yang paling menarik adalah metode konstruksi interiornya. Sebanyak 112 batang kayu disusun secara vertikal, kemudian dilapisi beton. Setelah beton mengeras, kayu tersebut dibakar selama kurang lebih 3 minggu. Sehingga proses ini menghasilkan dinding interior dengan tekstur arang yang kasar dan juga organik, sekaligus meninggalkan aroma kayu yang masih terasa. Selain itu, lubang bekas sambungan juga tetap dibiarkan terlihat, menegaskan kejujurannya. Lalu terdapat juga kontras antara bagian luar yang halus dan bagian dalam yang sangat ekspresif. Cahaya masuk melalui lubang kecil dan juga melalui okulus di atas, sementara timbal memberikan sensasi dingin dan berat, sehingga material di sini tidak hanya berfungsi secara struktural, tetapi juga merekam proses, cahaya, dan pengalaman ruang. Lalu untuk implementasi materialnya, pertama dari aspek kejujuran material, Beton ini digunakan tanpa finishing dan menampilkan secara langsung hasil dari proses konstruksinya. Jejak pembakaran kayu tidak disembunyikan, melainkan menjadi kualitas utama dari permukaan ruang. Hal ini menunjukkan bahwa estetika tidak berasal dari tambahan dekorasi, tetapi dari keaslian material dan juga proses pembentukannya. Yang kedua, material sebagai pengalaman sensorik. Jadi material beton di sini tidak hanya dilihat, tetapi juga dirasakan oleh tubuh. Tekstur yang kasar, suhu yang dingin, serta kesan berat dan masif membentuk pengalaman fisik yang kuat saat berada di dalam ruang. Material kemudian bekerja tidak hanya secara visual, tetapi juga secara taktil, thermal, dan auditori melalui keheningan ruang, sehingga membangun atmosfer ruang yang kontemplatif. Lalu yang ketiga, dari aspek interaksi material dengan cahayanya. Permukaan beton yang tidak rata merespon cahaya secara dinamis. Cahaya yang masuk dari okulus memperlihatkan tekstur material melalui bayangan dan juga kontras terang gelap. Perubahan intensitas cahaya sepanjang waktu juga dapat membuat ekspresi material terus berubah, sehingga atmosfer ruang tidak bersifat statis tetapi hidup dan berkembang. Lalu, keterkaitan antara teori atmosfer dari Peter Zumthor dengan Bruder Clausewitz Chapel, dengan fokus pada bagaimana estetika material diwujudkan dalam bangunan ini. Jadi, Bruder Clausewitz Chapel ini merepresentasikan teori atmosfer melalui material sebagai elemen utama pembentuk pengalaman ruang. Dalam hal ini, beton tidak hanya berfungsi sebagai struktur, tetapi juga medium yang menghadirkan atmosfer melalui kualitas fisiknya. Lalu dari aspek kejujuran material, beton ditampilkan tanpa finishing dan memperlihatkan secara langsung jejak pembakaran kayu. Permukaan yang kasar dan tidak sempurna ini menunjukkan bahwa estetika tidak berasal dari tambahan, tetapi dari karakter asli material dan proses yang membentuknya. Hal ini sesuai dengan gagasan dalam atmosfer bahwa keaslian material menjadi dasar dalam membangun kualitas ruang. Kemudian dari aspek pengalaman multi indera, material beton bekerja secara langsung terhadap tubuh. Tekstur yang kasar menghadirkan pengalaman taktil, suhu yang dingin membentuk sensasi thermal, dan sifat masifnya memberikan kesan berat secara fisik. Bahkan keheningan ruang memperkuat bagaimana material juga berkontribusi secara auditori. Dengan demikian, material tidak hanya dilihat, tetapi juga benar-benar dirasakan melalui tubuh. Selanjutnya, dalam interaksinya dengan cahaya, permukaan beton yang tidak rata merespon cahaya secara dinamis. Cahaya yang masuk dari okulus memperlihatkan tekstur material melalui bayangan dari kontras terang gelap. Perubahan intensitas cahayanya juga sepanjang waktu membuat ekspresi material yang terus berubah, sehingga atmosfer ruang terbentuk dari hubungan yang aktif antara material dan juga cahaya. Sebagai kesimpulan, Bruder Clausewitz Chapel ini menunjukkan bahwa dalam teori atmosfer, estetika material terletak pada bagaimana material yang jujur, melalui interaksinya dengan cahaya dan pengalaman indrawi, mampu membentuk atmosfer yang tidak hanya terlihat, tetapi juga benar-benar dirasakan oleh tubuh.
And the last one is The Art at Green School, Bali by Ibuku. And the theory that I choose is Material, Form, and Force by Tony Kotnik and Michael Winstop. The article explored a new way of designing architecture that moved beyond just focusing on visual aesthetic. Instead, it proposed a generative logic where the natural properties of material and fire and the environment, force like gravity or wind, are integrated into the design process from the very beginning. Traditionally, architects create a form first and treat the material as a servant to that form. This article argues that material, form, and force should work together in a balance. Material, form, and force. Material, rather than being a secondary considerations, material properties act as a defining element that computes the form. Understanding the thing, like the bending behavior of a plywood, allow for complex shapes without needing a heavy machinery or additional modes. Form is not independent geometry, but its direct reactions of material to the force acting upon it. Any change in form result in immediate redistributions of matter in space. And the last one is force. These are environmental pressure like gravity, wind, or atmospheric pressure. In this theory, force flow is used to determine where material should be accumulated, where stress is high, or remove where stress is low. These articles also give us an example, like the AAETH pavilion, a temporary timber structure used for sun shading, and then the second one is Bifurcates Bridge, a bridge project where the design was refined based on stress analysis, like the picture from down here. The next one is study case, designed by Ibuku for Green School in Bali, feature a unique bamboo roof structure with double curved arch, connected by a grid shelf. Created in collaborations with bamboo architect George Stem and engineering firm Atelier One, the 760 square meter space offers a free column sport court, with natural ventilations achieved through opening at the base and vents at the roof apex. This building inspired by nature. The art employs one of nature's greatest strategy to creating large space with minimal structure, with the human rib cage. A series of ribs working in conversions are held in place by a tensile flexible layer of muscle and skin. This creates a thin but strong encasement for the lung. In the case of the arch working in conversions are held in place by tensions anti-clastic grid shells. These fields of grid shells appear to drape across the space between impossibility, thin arcs soaring overhead, giving a whimsy, intimacy, and beauty to the space. Although the grid shells appear to hang from the arch, but they actually hold them up. The next one is theory and project relevance. The first one is material as computational element. The article argues that material is not a servant of form, but a partner. The arch, bamboo, is not just used for its looks, but for tensile strength and elasticity. Just like the article described the APH pavilion using the natural bending behavior of plywood, the arch using the natural flexibility of bamboo poles. The form isn't force. It is found by understanding how far a bamboo pole can bend before it resists, creating a structure that under constant healthy tensions. The second one is force-driven geometry. Tony Kotnick and Michael Winstock discuss how force flow should determine form. The arch uses a series of intersecting anticlastic grid shells, or curves that go into opposite directions. The article also mentions that form and material work hand in hand to process load conditions. The arch, the force of gravity and wind is distributed to the double curve of bamboo bundles. The mimics the article's point about the bifurcated bridge, where the geometry is specially tuned to digest the flow of force efficiently. And the last one is moving beyond Euclidean's design. The author suggests that we must move away from simple boxes towards complex, performative shapes. The arch is lightweight structure that achieve massive span, 19 meters, without heavy concrete or steel. It followed the article closing argument that freedom of design arises from the balancing of these two principles, material and force. By letting the bamboo physical limit define the curve, Ibuku created a space that feels organic but mathematically optimized or stable. In conclusions, the arch by Ibuku serve a profound real-world validations of Tony Kotnik and Michael Winscott's theory. By moving away the from traditional material as servant in models, the structure demonstrates how material form and force can exist as symbiotic cycles. The use of bamboo is not merely an aesthetic choice, but a structural necessity. It is a natural elasticity computes the complex and the classic geometry of an arch. Ultimately, the arch proved that when architects listen to inherited logic of material, they can achieve high-performance, large-scale span that are both ecologically sustainable and structurally honest. So, what exactly is the aesthetic of material? In architecture, a material is more than just a specifications. It is the language of space. The aesthetic of material is about how we take the physical element of our world and arrange them to tell a story. When we change how material is used, we change how persons feels within space. Materiality shows that aesthetic values come from how things are joined. Materiality defines our sensory reality and dictates the emotional atmosphere. And the last one, materiality proves the meanings of a building is found in its physical reality. Peter Zumthor says, to be architectural, a material must have a soul. It must speak to the sense and provide a sense of place. And that is the end of our presentations. Thank you.